Should we start off? Arun?
I think maybe we can wait for a couple of more minutes.
I think Srikant said we can start, but anyway, I'll wait a couple of minutes. Good, we have already about 50 participants. That's excellent. So Arun, will Srikant or you be sort of doing the opening part of the sort of moderator, someone to tell or to the order in which we speak, or how should we go about it? Or Srikant will do it? Srikant?
Hello. Please go ahead, Dr. Samantha. You will be the moderator. Please go ahead.
Okay. So Arun, maybe you can start off, yeah, and then.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking time out and joining us for this important discussion that we have on the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity. We have a very interesting session lined up for you. The focus is, of course, on how we can boost India-Thailand economic partnership using this, IPEF agreement. Another area of focus would be on Pillar 2, which is a supply chain agreement, details of which we'll get to know as the session progresses. And there will be also, discussions on using some case studies. So that's another interesting aspect of this. We have also a panel discussion that's lined up, where we will have participation from industry representatives. So all in all, I think we have a very interesting session ahead of us. I now request Mr. Shumanta Chaudhary to take over and take forward the session. Thank you. You're on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Sorry, my apologies. So let me begin by requesting Mr. Sofakit Charyunkul, Executive Director, ITD, to give his welcome remarks, followed by Dr. Nitinant Vizay Busan, who's the Assistant Professor, Board of Directors, Faculty of Economics, Thammasat University. Mr. Charyunkul.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sumanta. Again, good afternoon, Mr. Sumanta Chaudhary, Principal Advisor of International Trade Policy, the Confederation of Indian Industry, or CII. Dr. Nitinant Viswasuwan, Faculty of Economics at Thammasat University. Dr. Jan Duval, Chief of Trade Policy Facilitation Section, the United Nations Economics and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, or UNSCAP. And distinguished guests, colleagues, and participants. On behalf of the International Institute for Trade and Development, in collaboration with the Thammasat Institute of Area Studies, or TIARA, the Confederation of Indian Industry, CII, the United Nations Economics and Social Commissions for Asia and the Pacific, or UNSCAP, and the Center for the WTO Studies, I am delighted to welcome you to the today webinar, Unlocking Opportunities Through IPEF, India-Thailand Supply Chain Collaboration. It is truly an honor to see such a diverse group of experts, policymakers, and business leaders gather here to discuss an issue that holds great significance for both our nations. The Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, or IPEF, represents a forward-looking approach to regional collaborations. Through this framework, we aim to enhance economic resilience, promote inclusive growth, and strengthen stability across the Indo-Pacific. For India and Thailand, the IPEF presents a valuable opportunities to deepen our partnership, particularly through supply chain resilience and sustainable development. Today's section will focus on how India and Thailand can collaborate to address critical challenges, harness new opportunities within the supply chain sector. With disruption becoming a common concern globally, building resilient supply chains is not just essential for economic sustainability, it is also vital for sustainable development. By working together, we can ensure that our supply chains not only withstand disruptions, but also contribute positively to environmental and social growth. The section will highlight specific sectors such as automobile, electronics, and food processing, where collaborations can be especially impactful. Both our nations have made significant strides in becoming high-quality sourcing hubs and attractive destinations for foreign direct investment. By leveraging these strengths, I believe we can further our shared goals of enhancing connectivity, improving labor standards, and promoting regional trade integrations. As we proceed, I encourage each and every one of you to engage actively in the discussions, share your insights, and explore ways we can collectively address the challenges and opportunities presented by the IPEF. Your expertise and perspective are invaluable to ensuring that this framework not only supports our economic goals, but also advances a shared vision of prosperity for all. Thank you once again for your presence and participation. I look forward to a productive and inspiring section. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Charayankul, for sort of setting the context. And I would now request Dr. Nitinant to please give her opening remarks.
Yes, Mr. Supakit Charayankul, the Executive Director of ITD, Mrs. Samantha Chowdhury, Principal Advisor, International Trade Policy, CII, respected speakers, distinguished guests, and all dear colleagues. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm very honored to be with you today. On behalf of Thammasat Institute of Area Studies and the India Studies Center, I'm very delighted to welcome all of you to this important webinar, the Unlocking Opportunities Through the IPEF, India-Thailand Supply Chain Collaboration. I would like to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to our partners, especially to the ITD team, for inviting Thammasat to co-host this event. A very special thanks to our distinguished speakers and all participants for joining us to explore this very crucial topic. The Indo-Pacific Economic Framework presents a new and exciting avenue for deepening regional collaboration. And today's session will focus on how India and Thailand can utilize this opportunity to build a stronger and more resilient supply chains. So both our countries are strategically positioned to strengthen engagement, not only as close neighbors in the Indo-Pacific region, but also as the natural partners in the global economy. Thailand's strategic location as a central hub in Southeast Asia, paired with India's growing influence in global supply chains, will provide a very solid foundation for partnership. Through IPEF, we can align our strengths and explore new opportunities that will promote mutual benefit and foster economic growth in both nations. At the Thammasat Institute of Area Studies and Indian Studies Center, we have long focused on fostering deeper understanding of the evolving dynamism between Thailand and India. Over the years, the academic community has played a very crucial role in strengthening the ties that bind our two countries, not only through the trade and investment, but also through cultural exchanges, education, and innovation. So the academics and research institutions have been at the forefront of analyzing the key factors influencing our bilateral relationship and providing insights that guide policymakers as well as the business in drawing the strategies. So in the context of today's focus of the webinar, which is a supply chain collaboration, I'm pleased that the academic can offer unique perspectives and play a very crucial role, particularly on conducting in-depth research, offering the evidence-based insights, and also exploring emerging trends in the global trade, technology, and supply chain resilience. I'm very confident that the academic institutions can help shape strategies that business and governments can jointly adopt to make mutual benefits. And the research centers alike can also serve as the bridge, connecting policymakers, industries, and scholars to ensure that the collaborative efforts will be grounded in the data-driven solutions and long-term sustainability. In the past few years, we have brought the unprecedented challenges to the global supply chain ecosystem. Disruption from the pandemic, shift in the trade policies, and rapid technology advancement have underscored the need for the nations to rethink and reconfigure the supply chains to be more resilient and adaptable. So this is where Thailand and India can complement to each other, leveraging our respective strengths to build a more connected and sustainable supply chain network. Today's webinar will offer a platform for discussion of the essential topics such as digital transformation, infrastructure development, logistics, and sustainability. These are the areas of very critical importance for governments, businesses, and academic institutions. So our speakers will provide you with a lot of insights, I'm very confident, into how we can strengthen the existing trade routes, explore new avenues of collaboration, and create supply chains that are secure, efficient, and capable of thriving amidst the future disruptions. And I hope that this discussion will not only highlight the vast opportunities that lie ahead, but also inspire tangible, actionable partnerships that will benefit all of us. So today, in closing, I would like to thank all of you once again for your participation, particularly colleagues from academic and business sectors, for your contributions to this vital dialogue. Through the initiative of the IPEF and strong partnerships across sectors, we can ensure that both India and Thailand are well prepared to navigate the future, transforming challenges into the opportunities and building a stronger, more interconnected Indo-Pacific region. I wish you all very constructive discussion leading to impactful collaboration and sustainable success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nityanan, for those words and for your kind offer, I think, of helping out with research, which is always the backbone of such work. But let me now have the pleasant task of formally welcoming, on behalf of the Confederation of Indian Industry, all of you. Let me begin by thanking ITD, Mr. Sofakit Charyankal, the Executive Director, of course, Siriakan and the entire team. Let me also thank UNSCAP, and Yan is here. So good to see you, Yan. And Tiara, of course, Dr. Nityanand and her team. It's indeed a unique opportunity, I think, to discuss something which is of great relevance in today's world. And that is shaped by both geopolitical realities and with, of course, the signing of the supply chain agreement in the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Now, IPEF is in some sense a completely new agreement in the sense that the approaches, at least in terms of certain critical areas, are very different. So first, it stresses far more on collaboration than on legal bindings. So the key word here is collaboration. It could be in technology, it could be in sourcing, it could be in skill development, it could be in infrastructure, in investing in each other's markets, etc., etc. Second, I think the IPF provides for a much wider role to the private sector. Normally, trade agreements are restricted to governments, while the users, of course, are industry and trade. But in this case, I think the direct involvement of the private sector in the IPF is already sort of obvious. And for it to be taken forward, I think the private sector has to play a very critical role, of course, along with academia and business. So this is in some sense a different architecture. The third thing I think which is important is that we all, and I think my earlier speaker spoke, all the time we are seeing a lot of disruption, whether in logistics, whether in sea routes getting blocked, and so on, which is bringing the issue of resilience, which is bringing the issue of diversification of supply chains into sharp focus. And in this context, India and Thailand have always enjoyed, I think, a very strong economic partnership. But we do think that there is scope and potential to do much more. And the IPF is a good building block, given its emphasis on collaboration and the private sector, to specifically achieve this objective. And today's webinar is essentially an attempt to see how within the framework of the IPF, and even in the light of other geopolitical environment in this part of the world, how we can collaborate to try and get both new opportunities, leverage each other's strengths, look at the establishment of even value chains between India and Thailand, and of course the rest of the IPF membership as well. So these are all opportunities that I think today's webinar will provide an opportunity. Certainly, there are some key sectors which we are planning to focus without, of course, in any way taking away from the possibility of other sectors. So automobiles, food processing, electronics, these are very obvious candidates for such collaborations. But once again, I think let me also thank all the participants who have joined in. I think we have more than 50 participants, which is excellent. It does indicate the interest there is in taking India-Thailand partnership to a new level. And I do hope that in the entire proceedings of this webinar, we will come across perhaps much more specific instances of how we could carry this collaboration forward. But let me once again thank all our collaborators for bringing together this program and all of you. Thank you. May I now request the team of Arun Nair and Aisha to take us briefly through a small presentation on the IPF. So Arun, you would start.
Thank you, sir. We'll just quickly run through just a brief background, as Mr. Sumant Chaudhary said. This framework is essentially, a geo-economic and geostrategic alliance launched under the leadership of the US in May 2022. And as you can see, these 14 members bring in the economic heft, as they comprise 40% of the global GDP. Interestingly, it's more than the other mega regionals, the RCEP and CPTPP. And also, they account for around 30% of goods and services trade globally, and a third of the global population. So, a huge market there. And the objective here is to, look at ensure greater resilience, sustainable development, and overall prosperity within the region. Here, the implicit nature of this agreement, if you see, there is a China Plus One strategy. During COVID, we have seen the consequences of many nations being over-reliant on China because of this, the lockdowns and the supply chain bottlenecks that led to shortages in critical sectors like pharma and healthcare, electronics, and this in addition to the US-China trade war, created a lot of difficulties for the entire global supply chain. And this overdependence on a single source, especially in these critical sectors, resulted in price hikes and shortages and higher production costs, and also reduced profits, in some instances, huge losses as well. And the idea here is to ensure, availability of more supply sources, through diversification strategies and risk management. And this agreement, therefore, it's unique and innovative in nature, as Mr. Sumanth Chaudhary said. It's more of a collaborative kind of an agreement, which is voluntary in nature and without any dispute settlement. There is flexibility for all the members to join these 4 pillars, which are trade, supply chain, clean economy, and fair economy. Out of this, trade negotiations is still on. India has not joined; it's only an observer. There are issues relating to labor, environment, digital trade that are being discussed there. Supply chain, you see, the agreement is in place from since February 2024, and the clean economy and fair economy agreements are also in place. Here, if you moving forward on the supply chain agreement, it has created developed these institutional mechanisms, which are there are these 3 which are in function, which is Supply Chain Council. There is a crisis response network to deal with crisis by building in an early warning system there, and the Labor Rights Advisory Board to tackle all the labor issues. And soon we are going to see a CEO forum also being set up. And here the idea is to share best practices, carry out supply chain mapping, and the entire focus will be on identification of certain critical sectors and key goods that are important to the member countries. Of course, there is flexibility to make changes to the list of items, but only thing is these will have to be notified to the council. And the implementation will be through the action plan teams. Right now, there are 3. One is on critical minerals, and yeah. Can we go back to the previous slide, please?
Yeah.
On batteries, the semiconductor and chemicals. India is looking at a new action plan team on pharma and healthcare, considering the importance, especially during COVID-19, we saw disruptions there. All these action plan teams will have, will conduct stakeholder consultations and provide suggestions to the council. And then there are also these subcommittees. There are 2 now. One is on data and analytics, and the other one is on logistics. There will be could be a new one on workforce development, considering the need for skills upgrading and upskilling and reskilling, including in new areas like semiconductor and auto. And these panels will meet regularly. As we saw earlier, there is an overarching agreement of the IPEF, which under which these institutional mechanisms are created, and there will be regular meetings through regular meetings they hope to tackle some of these emerging challenges. The idea is to ensure that all the countries through evidence-based analysis, they identify their critical sectors and key goods, and map out areas where there is an overdependence on single source of supply, and see where their strengths are in domestic production and the gaps there and the potential to expand, and also take measures to boost local manufacturing, and identify who are the potential partners in the IPEF region to diversify supply sources and also to reduce the risks. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Yeah, Arun, I think you need to quickly carry on.
Yeah. I'll just wrap up. This is under these institutional mechanisms, the Supply Chain Council, we have this mechanism where the members take responsibility as a chair and vice chair. India is now the vice chair of the Supply Chain Council. US is the chair. And similarly for other institutional mechanisms, the chair and vice chair, which are mentioned there. And each country then brings their respective strengths. For instance, US has brought in a dedicated supply chain center and a diagnostic supply chain risk assessment tool. And also there will be regular, trainings, tabletop exercises on cybersecurity, on early warning system. And, the idea is to tackle supply chain bottlenecks. Through these, once the CEO forum is also in place, and then we'll have, possibilities for investment business matchmaking. The early warning system, of course, will be there, which means each country will have to share, the members will have to share confidential business data. Of course, the confidentiality will be ensured. And each country will be identifying areas for technical assistance and capacity building. Already, there are some simulation exercises which are carried out by the Crisis Response Network. The idea is to, once again, focus on these critical sectors and key goods. In this discussion, we'll focus on 3 such sectors of importance to India and Thailand, which my colleague Aisha will now, discuss in detail. Thanks.
Yes, Aisha, please.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, thanks.
Thank you, sir, for setting the context. I will just quickly run you through the background on the critical sectors and key goods that India has identified under IPEF. So basically, a methodology that India followed was where we took a quantitative as well as a qualitative approach. Based on the import set database, we tried to identify few sectors which are critical for India, and then further more in-depth analysis was done using qualitative insights from the industry as well as ministries and departments, so that a holistic view could be captured. And then basis on that, the critical sectors that India identified were pharmaceuticals and medical, chemical, fertilizers, critical minerals, metals, electronics and semiconductors, transportation, which includes automobiles, spacecrafts, etc., and agriculture, food processing. Now, given today's discussion, where our key interest is majorly focused on electronics, semiconductor, auto, and food processing, in the next few slides, I'll quickly run through some data points to just set a context that there lies a lot of collaboration opportunities for India and Thailand in these sectors. So this slide gives an overview of the trade data, that import data between different IPEF members, and showcases how the IPEF member countries are currently importing within the IPEF region as well as outside the IPEF region in the auto sector. So an average data of 2018 to 2022 was taken, and given today's focus, if we look at India's data point, we observed that India imports only 34% from IPEF countries, while major chunk is imported in the sector from non-IPEF countries. While Thailand is more integrated within the region with 58% of auto imports from IPEF member countries. Hence, this gives a cooperation and collaboration opportunity lies between India and Thailand under this sector, which I'll get into a deeper discussion in the next few slides. Similarly, if we come to semiconductors, a similar observation was made where again India is importing around 25% of its imports within the IPEF region, while more than 70% of its imports in the semiconductor sector is from non-IPEF countries. Whereas Thailand is importing around 50% within the region and around 50% outside. So still there's a chance for better collaboration in this sector as well. Now, we did some more in-depth analysis on the products that are imported from Thailand in the auto sector. And we observed that most of the products sourced are largely final goods, and India can look at sourcing of intermediaries of auto and auto components, both because if you look at my screen, I'll just quickly explain that we looked at the products within the auto sector that are imported from Thailand and has a good dependency on Thailand. But these are majorly final products. So both countries can pool resources to develop regional supplies for critical automotive parts, reducing reliance on third countries. Because Thailand is well integrated within the supply chain of auto sector, so we can look at intermediaries as well. Now we also did a similar exercise for semiconductor, but such trends were not observed. Hence, India and Thailand can push this agenda in the semiconductor and electronic sector as well, and can work with Thailand's electronic manufacturing expertise to develop some products where India and Thailand can work on this sector as well. Coming to our last sector focused for today is the food processing sector. Now, India's food processing sector is growing substantially, and the market size of food processing sector in India is estimated to reach around 1,274 billion by 2027. I'm just trying to set a context before I explain the table. And the further growing consumption of the food is also expected to reach 1.2 trillion by 25-26. So if we look at the table on the screen, we see that major sourcing in India is happening under few products. So we've taken a base of where there's substantial import value also, that is of around more than 5 million, and the India sourcing is also more than 40%, because there are other products as well within the food processing sector which India is importing, like marine sector, frozen fish, meat and vegetable preparations, but the quantity of imports and its share in India's imports is very less. So given the opportunity that the sector is food processing sector consumption and market is growing in India, there's a lot of scope for trade opportunity between India and Thailand under this sector as well. So I'll just stop here to give with my thoughts, and I think the experts from these sectors are available on the panel today, and we can hear more from them in the coming session discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aisha, and thank you, Arun. Can we take it off screen, please? Yeah, let me now turn to Mr. Khoptham Neelapachayat, Senior Researcher in ITD, and I believe that they will present some research findings on IPEF and related areas.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sumanda, and good afternoon, all of distinguished guests. Today, I would like to share some observation about the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, or IPEF, that focusing on specifically on the Supply Chain Resilience Agreement. Next slide, please. Moving on the main focus of today's discussion, this agreement is significant because it aims to enhance the security and resilience of supply chain throughout the Indo-Pacific region. There are a few key elements highlighted here. First one is promote information sharing, which involve creating a transparent and efficient system for exchanging data about the production, transportation, and other factors that affect supply chain. The second is this agreement includes a focus on crisis preparedness, provide guidelines to help countries be ready for economic disruption or crisis. And third, it encourages the building of partnership between countries, and particularly in areas like production, transportation, and technological support to ensure smooth operation within the supply chain. For impact and opportunities, as we think about the broader impact, it is clear that this agreement will play a vital role in strengthening economic ties across the region. For one, it will help improve supply chain resilience, enabling countries to work together more efficiently and build a sustainable economy. Additionally, it's opened up new trade opportunities, reducing risks and providing business with more chance to grow and succeed, particularly for countries countries like India and Thailand. In conclusion, the supply chain resilient agreement within the IPEF is powerful tool for enhancing security and resilient supply chain throughout the Indo-Pacific region. Ultimately, this agreement will create new opportunities for economic growth and trade, especially for developing nations like India and Thailand as they work together to build a more stable and prosperous future. Next slide, please. Before we dive into the how we can leverage the IPEF supply chain resilient agreement, let's first take a look at the current state of trade between Thailand and India. In 2023, India was Thailand's 11th largest trading partner with a total trade value about $16 billion. Out of this, Thailand exported goods worth about $10 billion to India, while import from India amounted to $5 billion. Now, what type of goods are currently being traded between two countries? When we look at the Thailand export to India in 2023, they are include plastic, chemical, fat, and oil plants, and animal origin, gems and jewelry, iron, steel, copper, machinery, and mechanical part, automobile, accessory and part, etc. On the other hand, the top import from India in the same year were gems, plant and plant products, fresh, frozen, and processed seafood, pharmaceutical products, vehicle part and accessory, coffee, tea, etc. As you can see, this could represent a wide range of industry. The trade relationship between two countries is diverse and holds significant potential for further growth. Next slide, please. For utilizing the IPEF supply chain resilient agreement to boost trade between India and Thailand, the primary goods traded between Thailand and India include raw material, machinery, engines. Additionally is agricultural products such as fruit, palm oil, and rubber also play a key role in this relationship. According to our research by the International Institute for Trade and Development, or ITD, there are three major opportunities for enhancing the supply chain between two countries. The first one is the Thailand holds a comparative advantage in agricultural products, particularly food and fruit, which can meet the high consumption demands of India's large population. Thailand's strong agricultural sector can also help mitigate the risks associated with this climate change that may affect food shortage. Beyond export, Thailand agricultural technology can be shared with India to improve food security in both countries. The second is India comparative advantage lie in technology, especially in the production of information technology management, artificial intelligence or AI, and innovation. India can invest in Thailand to manage supply chain more efficiently using advanced technology. This collaboration can further develop areas like digital trade and customer service. And third, both countries have a long history of economic cooperation, particularly through the private sector, like the Thai-Indian Chamber of Commerce has been actively promoting trade and investment between two countries for years, further strengthening this relationship. Anyway, look at the bigger picture. The geoeconomics play a critical role in developing supply chain resilience. Both countries have a logistic development projects, such as India have a Sagarmala project, Thailand have the South Southern Economic Corridor, or SEC, which plan to develop the part along the Andaman coast to connect with the Indian Ocean. This initiative will facilitate the smoother and a more efficient trade flow between two countries. However, there are still challenges that need to be addressed, particularly in understanding the different markets and consumption patterns of the two countries. As you know that India with its 28 states has highly diverse culture and highly diverse market, while Thailand consumption patterns are quite different. To create a sustainable supply chain partnership, both countries must learn from each other. So another challenge is the difference in the trade regulation. Both countries have distinct trade regulation, product standard, and import-export procedure, which can sometimes lead the misses opportunities for supply chain integrations. Why Thailand and India may be a competitor in some sectors, like such as rice export. There are still vast potential for collaboration, particularly agricultural and industry. Anyway, by leveraging the IPEF supply chain resilience agreement, we can overcome this barrier and support more diversified supply chain. Here are a few key strategies. The first one is encouraging supplier diversification to enhance resilience and participation. Will promote the connectivity and shared prosperity, reduce the weakness caused by over-reliance on the specific market. The second is improving logistic infrastructure, include the port, logistic hub, road, and freight railway to support a more efficient trade flow between the two countries. And third, engaging private sector, especially MSMEs, in the development of international standard that related to supply chain efficiently, sustainability, and resilience. And the last one is the fourth point is simplifying custom procedure, particularly perishable goods, to ensure the quicker processing and minimize delays. So anyway, I would like to conclude my opinion that by addressing the challenges and utilizing of the IPEF supply chain resilience agreement, both Thailand and India can significantly enhance their trade relationship, create more opportunities, and build a stronger and more resilient supply chain for our future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Koptam, and thank you for highlighting some of the areas of mutual collaboration. Let me now turn to my good friend Jan Duval, the Chief of Trade Policy and Facilitation, UNESCAP. And of course, I'm sure Jan would put this into a broader perspective. So Jan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hi Sumanta, and nice to be with everyone. So thank you very much for inviting ESCAP to join this webinar. I think it's very useful discussion. I learned a lot already from the presentation. A key mandate of ESCAP as one of the 5 regional commissions of the UN is to support sustainable development through regional integration. Right? So in that context, we really welcome closer cooperation between India and Thailand, 2 key economies at the heart of their respective subregions, right? South Asia and Southeast Asia. So in the few minutes I have, I'd like to elaborate briefly on 2 points, right? First point is on IPEF supply chain agreement, alignment with the agenda for sustainable development. And then the second point relates to UNESCAP tools and frameworks that can support implementation, in fact. So on the first point, the IPEF supply chain agreement, and actually I went through it now in quite some detail. I didn't do that before, so that was useful too. And it's quite an impressive document. Is very much aligned with ESCAP's long-standing call for mainstreaming sustainable development into international supply chain. It has a strong focus on trade facilitation, increasing supply chain resilience to cope with crises and emergencies, as well as on protection of labor rights, as envisaged in SDG 8 on the decent work for all. So most welcome is probably the fact that some of the bodies established under IPEF include not only government officials, but also representatives from the private sector and labor, which is, I think, quite interesting. It also specifically refers to UN standards developed by the International Labour Organization, so this is obviously welcome. And as such, I think India and Thailand should be able to leverage the framework to make further progress towards sustainable development goal, which at the end of the day, what everybody wants to achieve, right? It will be important, however, that the additional social, environmental, and other security requirements envisaged to be included in these next generation supply chains really be adapted to the need and to the level of development of each country to ensure that they don't become barriers to trade. Because at the end of the day, market access remains an important engine of growth and development for the region. On the second point, it's very encouraging to see that the framework implementation is expected to be evidence-based and data-driven. That's what I've found when I read through it, right? This is also something UNESCAP has actively promoted over the years, and we welcome India and Thailand taking advantage of relevant tools and instruments we've developed. For example, India and Thailand may want to leverage the UN Global Survey on digital and sustainable trade facilitation, or the UN Trade Digitalization Index databases we've already developed. They provide information on a wide range of trade facilitation and digitalization measures, going beyond the basics, right? The basics set of measures listed in the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. We also maintain, and this started more recently, with our colleagues from Africa and Latin America, a comprehensive database on digital trade regulations as part of our Integration Index Initiative, RDTII. And that could help identify regulatory bottlenecks for the development of digital supply chains. Let me also mention that we are soon launching, in fact, next month, an extension to our online trade negotiation advisor, TINA, that will provide estimates of the impact of the new non-tariff measures. And that could be directly relevant to the work foreseen under the IPEF supply chain agreement. We'll be happy to work with India, Thailand, and other IPEF members on evidence-based policy for inclusive and sustainable supply chains, including through ArtNet, right, the Asia-Pacific Research and Training Network on Trade, to which many of the think tanks represented here are already members, I understand. So to conclude, here's one final message, which I think could be quite important, is IPEF has really great potential to promote sustainable supply chain. But it's important to ensure that IPEF is implemented in an open and inclusive manner and not be used as a geopolitical tool that will further weaken the multilateral trading system and fragment trade. Emerging economies like India and Thailand have little to gain from trade fragmentation. And I suggest they proactively engage also in other regional and multilateral initiatives, in particular under the inclusive umbrella of the UN and the WTO. In that context, let me end by inviting both India and Thailand to join the UN Treaty on Facilitation of Cross-Border Paperless Trade in Asia and the Pacific. India and Thailand both participated in the development of that treaty, and joining it will most certainly contribute to IPEF successful implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you for, I think, pointing out the similarities in mandates between the IPEF and some of the work that UNESCAP does, and of course, the tools that UNESCAP brings to the table. And particularly, I think important is the one that you mentioned, which is perhaps being launched 1 year, which is to try and look at the NTMs and how to have some kind of quantification and so on. And I'm sure that would certainly help. But I'll also take this opportunity to once again thank UNESCAP for supporting this and coming on board as a partner, as always. So thanks both to you and Rupa. Of course, Rupa is not here, but to convey our thanks and gratitude to UNESCAP. And we certainly look forward, I think, to working with UNESCAP on these issues. So once again, thanks, Jan. So this brings me to the end of the first session, which was setting the context, and we could then move over to the next session, which is a very specific session on certain selective sectors. Particularly, the session will look at the auto sector, the food processing sector, and the electronics and semiconductor sectors. And we have a very, very distinguished panel to speak on various aspects. But just to recapitulate and place in perspective a few points which have come out, I think, through the inaugural session. And I think one, of course, is to what extent where both India and Thailand are dependent or over-dependent on single sources, can they look at each other for both joint ventures, for beefing up their domestic production capabilities? And in this context, it's quite possible that in some areas, which came out, I think, through the presentations as well, Thailand has perhaps technology that is far more efficient, and similarly, in certain areas, it is India which has the same. And therefore, how can we leverage these technologies in order to better have resilient and diversified supply chains? And another very important area, again touched upon, is the issue of skills. And here again, I think there is a great scope and opportunity to help each other in gaining skills which would actually contribute to the integration of India and Thailand into local value chains, both within each other and in the larger context. So I think these are some of the areas. And of course, one last area is also information sharing, which is sometimes vital to prevent risks, to ensure that bottlenecks are not beyond manageable limits, and so on. So with this framework in mind, let me now turn to the panel for this session. And let me start by inviting Preetham Banerjee, the head Center for WTO Studies, to speak on this area. And Preetham, of course, we've heard Tiara as well in terms of how academic and research centers can help. And so what are your own views on how both, I think, maybe to touch on how academia, research institutions, and businesses can work together better in this context, particularly in view of the India-Thailand, and what are perhaps some of the key challenges and opportunities that, in your view, are going to be key looking forward. So Preetham, if you are there, the floor is yours.
He's on the move, so he's finding it difficult to join.
Okay,
so maybe we can.
I'll turn to So maybe we'll get back to Preetham, but maybe let me now ask Mr. Atanu Ganguly, who's the Deputy Executive Director, Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, and of course, CIAM is, I'm sure, very well known to Thailand as well. And of course, Atanu will be talking about the auto sector, which is obviously a sector of great importance. So Atanu, perhaps since you are going to be focusing on the auto sector, in terms of some of the areas that have been outlined in terms of joint ventures, in terms of technology, in terms of maybe other areas like skill development, what are some of the key takeaways that you think India and Thailand, particularly the private sector, can look forward to? Atanu.
Thank you. Am I audible, Suman?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Chaudhary, and good afternoon and good evening to all our friends in Thailand. Basically, just to tell you in context, as far as the automobile industry is concerned, India is a huge industry, auto industry, over $200 billion industry, contributing to about 7% of India's GDP. And if you look at the employment, we employ about 30 million people in the country. Having said that, the industry is about more than 200 billion, but we also are hugely, largely dependent on imports for the auto sector. Now, in the auto sector, when we had looked at the imports, especially from the top 10 regions from where imports are happening, Thailand is the 7th country in the ranking from where imports is happening, where the auto sector in India is dependent. And what is more important is that 50% of whatever we import for the auto sector, about 50% of this is from the IPEF countries. So that is something very good. But as far as India is concerned, there are a lot of opportunities that exist presently. Presently, if you look at the imports which is happening, that was also presented by, I think, a CII a while ago. Most of our imports is on the parts and components. On CBUs, we do not have much of imports or exports from India to Thailand, except for two-wheelers because of certain, agreements that we have given as far as Thailand is concerned. Because the imports of two-wheelers more than 800 cc's are allowed in India at zero duty and without any type of approval. Therefore, there is some kind of skew towards those kind of motorcycles, but otherwise, in value terms, it's very minuscule. Now, within the imports, as I said, the non-IPF countries, there are, out of the 10 countries which we have seen, the top 10 countries from where imports is happening in the auto sector imports about 20% of its total value from various countries across the world. 6 countries are within IPF, and from Thailand, our imports is just about 5%. And there is a lot of opportunity when we have broken down in the item-wise category of imports that would happen. There are, we have looked at from where the imports are happening as far as the auto sector is concerned. For example, in engines, one of the leading importers is from China, Germany, USA. There are electrical, electronics, tires, etc. And Thailand, the total import is about 2% or 5% at the most, 10% in some cases like engines and fasteners. But more importantly, what we are seeing is in electrical and electronics, the imports from Thailand is just about 2%. Now, this is where I wanted to lay a bit more focus on. Recently, when we were doing some exercise on building the resilience of the Indian auto sector through the localization group of CII, we have attempted at looking at item-wise list of items which we are actually importing and we do not have sources in India. Now, for building up a strong resilience, it is important that we source these items from countries where there won't be any disruptions in future, whether if there is any geopolitical changes that is happening. And in fact, we have those lists available, and it would be good if we, as a follow-up of this exercise, get into those detailed discussions with the counterparts in Thailand, who can look at the components which we have shortlisted. There are components like miniature motors, printed circuit boards, LEDs, lithium-ion cells, etc., brushless motors. So all these items, if there is capability and capacity available in Thailand, that would go a long way in developing the capability of the Indian automotive sector as well. So without getting into too much of details, because we know we are in shortened time, I would like to say that this $200 billion auto industry going towards 240, 250 billion, and we also have a huge aspiration to grow at a rate of about 10% every year. It is very important that our supply chain is very resilient, and Thailand being an important partner and geographically very close to India, it would be a huge benefit for both the countries to collaborate and develop certain areas where both of them need support. In fact, in electrical and electronics, as Mr. Sumantra Chaudhary has pointed out, we were contemplating within the automobile industry that there is a need to develop the skills of the people in the country. And in this area, if the IPF members, some of the developed IPF countries can support India and Thailand in developing those skills, then I think our resilience would be much more stronger. So these details, obviously, I can share by email to all of you. If somebody wants to reach out to us, or through CII, we will be able to send all these details to you. So there are 10 major items which we are looking at where resilience can be developed. One is engines, electrical and electronics. Good amount of tires do get imported from Thailand, but we are more or less self-sufficient in tires. But there are rubber components, a bit of drive transmission and body chassis, where if capacity and capability is there in Thailand, that would benefit the auto sector. So I would like to pause at this point in time over here, Mr. Sumant.
Thank you very much, Atanu. I think thank you for specifying certain very critical parts and components where perhaps this dialogue can be taken forward. And I'm sure, Atanu, that there will be interest and we'll be able to, I think, continue to work on some of these specific questions. So let me now turn, I think, to
Pritam is back.
Pritam Banerjee, Head Center for WTO Studies, who I understand now is able to log in. So Pritam, I don't know if you've been able to follow the course of these discussions, but if not, essentially, of course, I would request you to speak on two issues. One, of course, is in the context of academia and research institutions and other think tanks, what kind of contributions and value add they can bring to the table in the context of course, the supply chain agreement. And second, in terms of more concrete suggestions on the supply chain, Indo-Thailand, both challenges and opportunities that you see are something that perhaps require more deliberation and more thought. Pritam.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary, and thanks for having me here. And I apologize for the earlier, my delay in joining. And thanks for those two very valid questions. So, quickly in response to the first one, I think academia in general and specifically institutions like the Center for WTO Studies, where we perhaps can play a role is there are three things specifically we have been doing, which I think we can also apply to the wider academia. Number one is, of course, desktop research, because there is some need for that as well, to look at various different trade indices, different methodologies that have been applied by different countries, because there are a number of such studies which have been done by academia and research institutes in other IPEF member states as well. So they have looked at this problem of supply chain resilience, of supply chain linkages, of what constitutes resilience, and also from a value chain perspective to all of this. So essentially to look at those methodologies and see how we stand, come up with our own perspectives on that, define what is dependency, define what is absolute dependency on imports, what is a vulnerability in the sense, vulnerability can be anything. It could be logistics vulnerability just because of choke points. It could be vulnerability because you're over dependent on one supply source. So, so basically bring in all those lenses and, prepare succinct reports, etc., which could be the starting point for discussions, because those are, as as I started out saying, are desktop analysis, which, provides a window, perhaps raises certain questions. And those questions are important to be raised because then they can be taken to those who really understand these supply chains and these needs, essentially the industry and stakeholders around industry, to respond and comment and give the greater detail responses to those questions and how we can go forward. So that's, I think, one role, kind of in partnership with industry, try to come up with some answers to these problems. In terms of the wider implications of how this is playing out, again, we need to look back and ask ourselves, and this is a question I would like to leave to all the participants, especially the industry participants here, is what they what for them constitutes vulnerability and what for them constitutes resilience, because these are the two fundamental questions I think we are trying to ask ourselves today. So definition of vulnerability, as we discussed, could be purely logistics operations related, and we have seen such problems arise in the near past. But it could also be issues related to dependency on technology, on specific critical inputs. I think I was hearing our colleagues from SIAM mentioned some of those points. And then the question is, what is, resilience? How do we respond to this vulnerability? And that is also not an easy question to answer. I mean, because that is the policy part of, the response part of responding to vulnerability. So, is it through trade agreements? Is it through, specific arrangements that find redundancies in logistics operations? And we have seen some of that. One of the most successful examples of building redundancy, especially, I mean, my colleagues in automobiles and electronics will be more aware of this, that the high-end kind of electronics and automobile parts and components and even full, knockdown units, etc., of luxury cars, a lot of it shifted, or some of it shifted, to the China-Europe railroad. I come from the logistics industry myself. The firm that initiated some of the first operations, we were operating about maybe less than 6 rakes a month, about just 10 years ago, in fact. And now that number has gone 7, 8, 9, 10-fold. And a lot of that, in terms of absolute percentage, is still less than 15, 16% of the total volume of trade in automobiles and electronics. But given the sheer absolute amount of trade between China and Europe in these sectors, is not a small amount. We're talking about close to 1.5 million TEUs. That's more than the second largest port in India handles in a year. So that's the amount of volume that is moving on train between China and Chengdu and in Europe every year. And about 2/3 of that is on these two sectors. Because China wanted to find redundancy to the Straits of Malacca and the shipping lines. So that is one approach. The other is, of course, can IPEF and other such mechanisms, at least for those critical inputs, whether it's in pharmaceutical or other of, fertilizers, critical parts and components, can IPEF be a solution? And if it's going to be a solution, what's the mechanism through which this will happen? Will it happen through investment facilitation, where we see more investment and, shifting of production from certain geographies to India, and we build our capacity that way? Or will there be some, assurances of supply during time of crisis? There is suggested crisis management group, for example, in the supply chain pillar. What are the disciplines they will come out with? I think industry needs to proactively also come up with some suggestions of their own, and not leave it entirely to academics like us or even government officers because we will be doing 10,000, 15,000 feet thinking, which might not be the appropriate solution. So I will stop there and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Preetham, and thank you for sort of bringing out, I think, two facts. One, of course, is the importance of data crunching, which is going to be critical in all, and developing these indices. Different IPEF members have used different methodologies, but at the end of the day, the endeavor is constant, whatever methodologies you use. And second, of course, is the wider spectrum, and particularly on the logistics, which sometimes doesn't perhaps get the attention that it deserves. And I think this is an opportunity also to look at the logistic bottlenecks and how collaboration in logistics can help just about everyone in this region. So thank you, Preetham. And let me now turn to, we've heard the Indian industry. Let me now turn to a sector which is of great importance to Thailand, and that is, of course, the food processing sector. And let me invite Mr. Shanti Abakas. He's the CEO, co-founder, Taste Bud Lab and BioBuddy, and Future Food Network Vice Chairman. So we all know Thailand's strength in this sector. So how can Thailand help both in terms of its innovation, its technologies, its sustainable practices, and secondly, I think also in terms of in food standards and related issues are a major sort of component of how you tackle this. So how do you see this in terms of the IPEF framework? So the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you and Swadikap. Thank you for having and for the introduction. I think it's very great pressure to learn about this framework, and we hope to be a part of and inspired by many key insight and any strategy that the previous speaker have mentioned. As Thailand, I think we are among friends and partners in food supply chain and global food supply chains, and a good friend in trades with India, as the previous speaker has mentioned. Many of the key of commodity and innovation food products and food supply that we trade between each others. Like currently we are around like 44 billion in terms of food export, but is that resilience? Is that when looking to future, is that a sustainable future for us, Thailand and India, or not? I think we still need to reassess and have to a lot in terms of use this very framework to set the roadmap and guideline for us to work together to transform the food supply chains, and eventually we have a more sustainable food system between each countries. I'd like to highlight some of the key points that we look in Thailand. On the commodity goods, I think a lot in Thailand we need to learn from India, and we need to collaborate in terms of practice and how to really effectively grow and cultivate and adaptive to the climate crisis in the future, because we grow rice, cassava, commodity goods, and I think we need a lot in terms of climate adaptation and learn of how that we can really learn from India and can synergize in terms of trade and practice. And we are looking into not only sustainability practice, but more resilience and more regenerative practice. And I think India have a lot of permaculture and a lot of biodynamic and other regenerative practice that we can learn from each other. Another sector that is we are in focus in Thailand and Board of Trade, we have a special committee called Processed Food and Future Food Committees. Is future food, and in the future food, main and key category that we are focused in short terms is functional food and alternative protein, and mid and long term is medical food and other novel food products. On the focus of the alternative protein, that we're going to feed the most protein consumption in Asia Pacific, and most especially rising population in India and in Thailand, is alternative protein. Right now, we are not very resilient. We are extract soy isolate protein, more than 95% that we use in our food manufacturing and processing in Thailand as of now. So how can we work with India, right? In terms of as of now, so what other source apart from soy protein that we can work together, that we can have hands-on the alternative protein ingredients to use for our food manufacturing and processing to export to global consumption or local consumptions. And I think in so many ways that we can sit down together and have a good guideline and can work together. Another short terms that we talk about functional food, currently approaching $1 billion US that we are importing the functional food ingredients to use for functional food, functional drink, to help people have a good wellness and health in Thailand and export to global markets. So with that, I think in Thailand it's lead us the way of make use of circular economy, make use of extraction from spice to other base ingredient in food and functional food ingredients industry. So a lot of ways that in the future food that we can work together on the long term in the future food, on the supply chain. I think we're not gonna see the future that we are doing the same thing and that is fragmented in between each country. If we talk about like precision fermentation, right now the big corporation in Thailand like BBGI company is work with Firmbox and is India practice and knowledge in the applying the precision fermentation in producing the alternative protein ingredient for medical and material industry. So that I think that's a good chance that this framework can streamline and can accelerate how we can work together. And a little bit far beyond is culture protein. So I think we can be a hub for like downstream or some of the midstream to work in the alternative protein in cultivated or cellular agriculture protein in the future. But how we can work with India in terms of like growth factor or feed factor in the future to really make this accessible, right price, and become reality with a good alternative for people in the future to consume. So this will eventually transform some of the big area in the food system transformation. Another point that I like to highlight is I think the previous speaker have mentioned, and I love and hope to see, because like food industry and food supply chain is one of the industry that less and least digitalized. So how can we learn from India? So transform altogether in the regulatory or food safety standard and digitalize on food transparency, food safety altogether. And I think Thailand would really much love working with India, as you are a door to the great population and consumption that we are all well loved in spicy food, and we share the love of the taste of the food already. So I think this is the key that I like to highlight, and would like to end with your questions that how we can address the challenge and shift in the either the standards. I think agree with Jan, from UN, right? All the standards or all the framework that we are trying to work together towards the sustainable food system should be more in terms of like inclusive. So it should not be pressed in terms of barrier of trades between each country, but how can we showcase to the world that two of our country join force hand in hand, and we have a good set guideline trades, also framework and plans that we put together that we're going to do trade and supply between each country to provide and to solve world hunger, industry revolution, or supply chain efficiency all together with this application of this IPEF food corridor. So I love to see and to be a good support and a good friend to see this come alive and accelerate it for a sustainable food system together. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vakat, and that was very interesting, and I learned a lot on this alternative proteins and functional food that you talked of, and I see this as also one of the essential sustainable development objectives of actually challenges that both India and Thailand face. And I do see this as an area that, as you have rightly said, perhaps we need to engage more and look at specific collaboration. So thank you very much. Let me now turn to the third sector for the day, and this is, of course, the very critical sector of electronics and semiconductors. And we have Mr. Rajesh Sharma, Executive Director and Principal Advisor, Indian Cellular and Electronics Association, or ICA. Now, Rajesh, we all know the importance of this sector. And in some sense, many of the other sectors are also, which we've discussed, including auto, very much depends on this sector as well. So one is, of course, how do you see, the larger electronics and the semiconductor engagement between India and Thailand? And I think both of us, in some sense, have a challenge of how to move up to the front end. And then there are issues relating to R&D and skills, which are absolutely critical. So Rajesh, maybe you could touch on some of these issues during your intervention. Rajesh.
Thank you, Sumanta. Thank you for hosting this important dialogue. India and Thailand, I think, also share common roots also. So I think it will be pleasure to work together also. So just as you said, electronics is the largest traded commodity in the world now. We are almost like $3.5 trillion semiconductor and electronics ecosystem. Largest traded almost equal to, if not more than the oil. And fortunately, unfortunately, this is almost more than 95% is controlled by global value chains. So we need to have that perspective in place, that it is going to be, we need to build a cooperative infrastructure. If when we are talking of resilience, each country cannot have everything of the semiconductor or electronic supply chains. We have to be interdependent. So we need to build capabilities which are complementary to each other. I was looking at certain numbers. We are doing $115 billion of electronics manufacturing. We have grown almost 400% in last 6-7 years, and we are looking to grow almost 400% in next 5 years, also going to $300 billion. We have launched a robust semiconductor program also. But our trade between India and Thailand in electronics is not that much. We are almost $1.5 billion of trade, both sides, which almost 1.3, 1.4 is what we are importing from Thailand, and almost $200 million worth of is what we are exporting out of Thailand. So I think there is a lot of opportunity available in this, because since our base is small, so we can look at it mutually, how we can grow each other. I think that's more than instead of growing alone, we can grow together, because most of our supply chain or most of our manufacturing is concentrated in one part of the world. And now people are looking at alternative, or we call it in a good English language, resilience, but it is almost, we are looking at an alternative so that we should have a balance in the world. I think there is a lot of opportunity in that aspect. In semiconductor, Thailand has done really, in OSAT and ATMP, they are ahead of us. They have done good. Maybe we can work together. We can learn something from them. We can look at India has a good source of skilled manpower. Like you touched about skilling, the manpower, we can be a source of skilled manpower to Thailand companies. There is a startup happening. The start has happened that there is a company called Star Microelectronics, Thai company. They are a part of this India Semiconductor Mission program. They are part of joint venture partner with the CG Power to build a ATMP holder. We can look at more such type of initiatives between us. Then we are also building a good consumer electronic industry here. Thailand also has a good consumer electronics. So we can jointly work towards moving up the supply chain and moving from finished product, how we can jointly develop the sub-assemblies or the components which we both need, so that our both side of the industry can grow more. Third is, I think we should also look at it how, when we are talking of moving up the value chain, we should look at how we can build our own technologies, or how we can build on IPRs, how we can build on new solutions which can address to the 3 billion people which are going to require the bottom end of the pyramid, which are looking at new technological solutions. Maybe both countries can work together, that how we can develop the new age technological product, which includes semiconductor also and electronics also, how we both countries can work together. There is another product which we should, I think, look at it as from product is solar cells. So India is now building capability of large capability of building solar cells manufacturing in India. We are exporting large quantity to US. Maybe how we can look at it, how we can work together with Thailand also for providing green energy. They are looking at building green energy portfolio there also for all the semiconductor industry and other industries. So maybe these are some of the thoughts which came to my mind, top of the mind, where we can work together. But bottom line is both countries has to grow a lot in electronics manufacturing. So we should work together. We should we should exchange more people with each other. We are building they have built a very good PCB industry. Maybe we can look at it, how we can build the inputs of the PCB industry from in both the countries, maybe from India, because we have raw material available over here. We can look at laminates, we can look at copper linings. So there are a lot of opportunities which we can explore. Thank you. I will stop here, Sumant.
Thank you very much, Rajesh, and thank you for, I like what you said, grow and work together. And I think that's very, very important in a sector where, in some sense, perhaps both of us are still up the curve. And this is perhaps the right time to look at, and you've spelled out, I think, specific collaboration areas, which I'm sure the two sides can build on in the days to come. And thank you, Rajesh. So let me now turn to the last speaker in this panel, who is Dr. Jaruprapa Rakpong. He's the Associate Professor in Thammasat University. Now, we of course heard your colleague in some sense talk about some of the ways and opportunities. But again, from both, and Preetham has also mentioned, I think, how academia and think tanks can really help providing, I think, both to the private sector and to the government, in some sense, the missing links. So, Jaruprapa, if you can also sort of spell out what you think are some of these critical areas that perhaps Thammasat is already working on or plans to work on, and putting it in the context of the discussions that we've had.
Okay, hello, everyone. Greeting from the rainy Bangkok, Thailand. Namaste as well, and Sawadi, like everyone over there. Sorry, I probably have a little bit on the technical issues, should be solved now. Yes, rightly, it is a very exciting time for academia, like in the field of international trade, because IPEF is kind of innovative in a sense that it is not only the agreement or like the trade agreement to reduce the cost or for the reduction of tariff, but it is to like share the supply chain. So opportunities are huge for the businesses and also for academic. I'll just like go to I'm going to focus on the question that are being asked, because I think a lot of areas have already been covered by the learned speakers. So the question that has been posed to me is that how can the academic and research institutions like Thammasat and the universities, the learning centers in Thailand and India can contribute to the success of the IPEF supply chain agreement, especially on the advanced technology and to support the resilient supply chain. I could kind of summarize it into like two key areas, I think. The first one is on supply chain information, and the second one is probably not been like talked about before. We call it the NQI, the National Quality Infrastructure. Regarding the first one on the supply chain information, because of the upcoming IPEF, and also like with putting in the like broader context of the WTO, like like interrelations, and also like the agreements that we currently have with India, like Thailand and India FTA, and ASEAN and India FTA, and also like probably like the upcoming FTA between Thailand and India with other countries, perhaps like the European Union or beyond that. We can see that it would be worthwhile for both sides to share the supply chain resources and materials. And we do have like our sort of like the specialties, and we can make it work. But that would bring us the risk of supply chain, well, the risk and also like the opportunity of like the supply chain information sharing. We probably need to focus in the academic world to research on the systematic and accurate data sharing. So this would also like bring about like the law that is governing it, and also like the technology that is governing it. Here, I'm pretty sure that the institutes in India, you have like a lot of like specialties and expert on it. And also like there have been like the issues regarding data governance, especially about like the information leaks, not only on the personal level, like the personal data leaks, but also like on the trade secret, IPR, intellectual property rights and beyond. And recently, Thailand have experienced a lot of issues, a lot of concerns on this. I think it could be the risky things to do. And I'm pretty sure that for the research institutions, it would be worthwhile like to conduct the research not only on the law or like economics, but also like on the technicalities regarding this. This brings me like to the second point, which is on the NQI, which I think it hasn't been like mentioned before. NQI actually like stands for the National Quality Infrastructure. You can add the word framework there, but I think in the new or like the upcoming trade negotiations and FTAs, or sometimes the bilateral negotiation between government, we actually go beyond like tariff reduction and probably like go beyond the safety, quality management, or like technical regulations and standards. But we also checked how the standards are reliable. Like, the information have to be reliable. It has to be tested accordingly. It has to be accredited, and the system of testing or the conformity assessment itself have to be accredited as well. So we are looking, perhaps like in the academic world, we have to look for the research funding towards probably like the shared or like universal or at least like internationally recognized standardization. India and Thailand, we can look into, for example, like ISO or UNECE, for automotive, for example, or the ICE, for electrical appliances and beyond. For food safety, we could look at ISO and perhaps like the Europe GAP and so on and so forth. This always like come with the cost. Okay, for bigger players, it might not be that difficult because they have already like kind of applied this kind of like internationally recognized standards. But what about the MSME? Can the government do something to help? Are there any areas that we can share, sharing the expertise, or perhaps like make it less costly, or make it like do in other ways like to achieve the same thing? And this is the area that we must focus on, like in not only on the trade laws, but also like on economics, and also for probably like food science, or like other faculties, like engineering, scientific and beyond. And for the NQI, I would also like to highlight that it is not only about the standards or the regulation itself, but also like other areas as well that we have to ensure that it is well gathered and like well researched, or like well funded, if you want to to give the funding to the institutions. I'm pretty sure that we would like to accept some, but also like for example, like conformity assessment, how can we make it like less costly, and also like about compliance mechanisms. Like for some standards, we share the standards, like for example ISO or UNECE, but there could be different paths towards that standards. We might use governmental institutions or laboratories versus privately recognized one, which could be quicker but more expensive. If like we could like contribute towards like cutting the cost but achieving the same thing, I think the research funding would be worthwhile, and we would be welcome any funding, of course, talking for the universities. We're from Thammasat anyway. Right, okay, last but not least, about I would like to address on like the PPM, okay, process and production method. This is sort of like the buzzword. In the past, we have talked about like, we call like PPM, or like product related process and production method, which is about like the quality of the product itself. But recently we have heard more on like the import conditions, not only between India and Thailand, but we have some, but our like third countries or other IPEF members, they also have like the NPR PPM, which is from like non-product related process and production method. They want to know how the goods are being produced, not only that they fit the standard required, not only that they are safe, not only they are cost worthy, but you know, like is it like good for the environment? Has it like been calculated with the carbon credits, or about like how about human rights abuse or labor standard? Is it good or not? And this tied in with the next stage of the IPEF towards the green, clean, and fair economy. You might ask, or as an academic, I question like green and clean by like which side? Probably not like internal, or like not only at the domestic level, not only like bilateral between Thailand and India, but probably in the broader sense, because we also have like the other members in IPEF, and most of them are developed countries. So if we share the entire supply chain information, they would probably want to know how the goods are produced and anything that is related to the green and clean and NPR, PPM, how products are made. Traceability would be important. For example, in Thailand, I think for the food sector, for example, only those that are being exported are subject to like, you know, the rigorous traceability rules. But food in Thailand, it depends, like, you know, it is not as well like kind of governed under the traceability like traceability laws and things like that. I would just like to end up with like the interesting case studies, just in case throwing like examples, just in case like we have more participants from the listeners as well. We've known and from the learned speakers before me that automotive and also like food industry would be the ideal candidate for conducting the detailed case study researches. Because this would be, you know, it would be great that we could share like, you know, our resources. This, of course, would come with the risk of like information sharing, risks and opportunities. But I think jewelry industry would be interesting. Not only I love the blings, which I do, but I've just stumbled upon like the data that we in Thailand, like last year, we actually like imported the gems stones from India, probably like top 1 or 2. Okay, so they the generation of income would be great, and we also like export to India. I think we are top 4 for the jewelries, like, you know, kind of ready-made jewelry. So we are getting the gemstone from India, probably the gold and the diamond as well, and we kind of create this, you know, kind of jewelry pieces and sell back to India, and you probably like sell to the rest of the world. For things like this, like automotive, food, and jewelry industries, especially now we are talking about like the consumer, which value their products, like, you know, informed consumers. They not only want to know where it is from, or like how good it is, like the product, how good it is, but is it like good for the environment? Like, is it like caring for the environment, or is it like good for the human rights? And this kind of thing, sometimes it is hard to share, or like sometimes it is unrecorded from the beginning. So we might look towards building up or researching to build like the system whereby this kind of information is shared from the beginning to the end of the supply chain, which for some industry like jewelry, it would be always hard, but I think it is doable. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jaruprada, and that was a very comprehensive sort of presentation. And of course, I think the importance of the entire quality ecosystem that you talked of. And I think, yes, it's just not the standard, it's the testing, it's the accreditation, it's the conformity assessment, etc. So all of that, I think, is very vital. So we've gone through one round of questions. We are, of course, exceeded our time, but at the same time, I would request all the panelists to be on board, because at this stage, I would like to, I think, open up the floor to the audience. There are some perhaps who have already either raised their hand or put a question on the chat, and I would request all the panelists to kind of either one of them or more than one to kind of take it on board. Arun, could you perhaps take us through those who are wanting to ask a question?
I think Pratyush, you can please go ahead with your intervention.
Yes.
Please. Pratyush is from Loham.
He had.
It's yeah, please. And then we have Manoj.
Thanks a lot, Arun. Hi, I'm Pratyush from Loham. We are a critical minerals company and the largest battery materials company in India. So with respect to Thailand, I think one of the interesting things is Thailand has historically been a very large tin producer. That industry was pretty big in Thailand till the 1980s. But what is very interesting is tin usually signals lithium, a presence of lithium, and Thailand has significant resources of lithium. They are not very well explored yet, so they're not at a reserve stage. But for example, just earlier in the year, I was in Phuket and then Phang Nga for near the Andaman Sea, where there are lithium projects ongoing. So there is a very large potential for lithium exploration, and then for the mining and refining, where I think both India and Thailand can collaborate. India is in a similar situation where there are lithium resources that have been found, but we've not done a proper exploration yet. So there is a large opportunity, and both of us need to develop that exploration capability and then further mining capability. Refining capability, companies like Loham already bring in. So considering the geographic proximity, there can be a very good supply chain that can be built between the two countries. And India can obviously also provide a competition or alternative to China and other countries that might be interested in such material in Thailand. So that sort of helps provide better value to the local Thai operators. So that is the first point. The second point of interest for us would be around batteries and EVs. So I think Thailand last year registered more than 100% growth, YOY growth in EV penetration. And there is an expectation that EVs are going to grow big. So, and that in turn over time will mean that a lot of EVs are going to reach the end of life, or batteries are going to reach the end of life, and they'll need recycling. Thailand does have some recyclers, and they do a lot of mechanical processing, but a lot of the chemical activities end up happening elsewhere, maybe in China or in other parts of the world. So again, that is something where I think there is an opportunity for India and Thailand to have a closed loop circular ecosystem for a lot of these materials, and not just for battery materials, but other kinds of critical materials as well, like catalytic converters, or which contain platinum group metals or rare earths or magnets. So, and those are again capabilities that are somewhat available in India, somewhat available in Thailand, but available in a lot of other IPEF countries like Japan, which has a very strong magnet industry. So there is an opportunity to collaborate. So these are the two main interventions that I wanted to make. Happy to take any further points around this.
Thanks, Pratyush. Manoj Gupta, kindly identify yourself, the company that you're representing, and make your intervention, please. Manoj.
Yeah. Greetings to everyone. My name is Manoj. I'm coming from Curtiss-Wright, the same company who innovated aeroplanes. So I'm responsible for valve group business into Southeast Asia region. So my question is to the Thai panelist. It is very straightforward question that we are looking for establishing a manufacturing facility in Southeast Asia. So in my yesterday's meeting, internal meeting with the corporate, there was a question that came up, and I was waiting for this meeting to present that question to you. What is the minimum threshold for having a made in Thailand tag for the content? For example, there are no good foundries in Thailand as of now. So most of the castings will be coming either from China or from India into Thailand when we are establishing a manufacturing facility or assembly facility of valves, industrial valves in Thailand. So is there any threshold, minimum threshold that needs to be met to have a tag of made in Thailand for the components?
Any of the Thai panelists would like to take this question, please? We'll
Hi.
take that off. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Hello, Jariprabha, academic side. The lithium question is still debatable in Thailand. I think in the news report, we were like quite excited when the news came out that we discovered the lithium. Like, so we are ranking number 3 in the world. Just only followed Bolivia, and the first one is I kind of not remember, maybe Argentina, something like that. But there was a little bit like controversies whether we are number 3 in the world or not, but in any way it should be substantive enough, to produce like a large number of cars. Like we're talking about like millions or something like that. This would have to be tied in again, like with the perhaps like the green economy. Talking from the academic side, I know like it is like exciting opportunity, and if we share the knowledge and like we share the supply chain, this would be a great opportunity between our countries. But we must not forget that eventually we still have to trade like with other partners in the IPEF and also like with the rest of the world. So eventually the issues of the traceability and also like controlling that when we dig out the lithium and when we process them, they are in the best possible manner, like, the best possible way to not to damage the environment too much, that we take the participations of like the local communities, transparency, and also like, towards like sustainability as much as we can. But of course, it is a very great opportunity, and hopefully we could do like the research in that area. Thanks.
We have time maybe for 1 or 2, Arun, if there's somebody else.
Yeah, we have already overshot time limit, but maybe one question.
One last question.
One last question from anybody from the Thai side would like to ask any question regarding collaboration or partnerships with India or any other regulatory aspects. So we can then, I think, close the session.
So perhaps, firstly, let me first thank all the 5 panelists for their views, and I think each one of them has indicated certain very promising areas where I think we need more discussion. So I will not attempt to sum up as such, but to say that obviously there is a lot of interest from both sides. I think that is evident. And I think we need to capitalize this interest into a momentum which propels it forward. So I think certainly some follow-up in areas that have been identified. And I think jointly, I think maybe ITD and CII and the others can also draw up a report of this webinar and sort of, then send to everyone. And I think then we need to take it to certain individual sectors with much more intense participation. So I think that is the one message that I will give. And I think certainly I would thank once again all the participants and who've been very patient in listening and going through this. And of course, to all the partners. But before I end, is Mr. Sufakit Charayankul still there? And then I would request him to perhaps make some closing observations of his own as well.
Sir, if I may come in before
Please.
Yes, sir. Sir, ITT just has an evaluation survey which they just want to highlight it to the participants.
Please let them do it.
ITT team, if anybody wants to explain the evaluation survey on the screen, please.
Please.
Hello, I'm Sirikan, Director of International Cooperation. On behalf of the ITD, as we approach to the end of this session, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to CII, Thammasat University, UNSCAP, and also WTO study and also all the panelists for their valuable insights and contribution to our initiative, webinar between CII and ITD and all the partners. And today's discussion, we have highlighted an immense of the potential for India and Thailand collaboration, particularly under the IPEF framework to forge and resilient and innovative supply chains that can drive and sustainable growth across the region. And I think, let's continue this opportunity and, working together to unlock the full of potentials and for the Indo-Pacific region as well. And thank you for your all active participation today. We have a fruitful discussion, and I learned a lot from our speaker today, and I look forward to our ongoing conversation in the next future. Thank you once again for your insightful, informative today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're on mute. You're on mute. Mute.
So once again, thanks, Virikant, for those closing and very positive observations. And once again, let me end today's session with thanking all the panelists, all the participants, and of course, ITD, UNSCAP, and Thammasat University. I think it's been a very interesting session, and we certainly need to carry this momentum forward. And we do look forward to engaging with all of you in the near future. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Swadika.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.